Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey Buckley, and today I'm going to be presenting on the topic of fast fashion. According to my research, the average person buys 64 new items of clothing per year. It is no mystery that the US is a consumerist country, but with an increasing rise of population and limited resources, there can be very negative consequences. Today, I will be talking about what fast fashion is, as well as the problems and solutions behind it. I personally work as a merchandise processor for a large brand distributing thousands of pieces of clothing per day. In my opinion, this brand is very sustainable and educates its employees about the textile business and ways to be more sustainable within the clothing industry. I have also done extensive research online. This topic relates to everyone, as we all wear and need clothing. Some people might be really into fashion, while others just view clothing as a necessity. Either or, it is important to know where and how our clothing is being manufactured, and therefore the effects it plays globally. Today, I will be discussing what exactly fast fashion is and the environmental impacts it has on the environment, such as distributing toxic chemicals into water, as well as the unethical business practices it can have. First, I'd like to discuss what exactly the definition of fast fashion is and how the process can distribute toxic chemicals into the water. According to Alex Crombie, writer at Ethical Consumer magazine, fast fashion has a number of qualities that are considered fast. The changes in fashion are fast, as well as the rate of production, and the garments are usually only worn a number of times before being discarded. Fast fashion creates a number of concerns for the planet on a global scale, from excessive water use in production to the use of plastic fibers that can contaminate the ocean and create a surplus of carbon dioxide emissions. According to my research from Princeton University, the fashion industry consumes a tenth of all water use from industrial manufacturing, and it takes approximately 3,000 liters of water to produce just one cotton t-shirt. Many of these garments from fast fashion companies use cheap plastics that break down easily with the combination of water and soap. A marine conservation organization, Oceanwise, estimated that U.S. households release over 170 tons of plastic microfibers into the ocean each year, which is just from the use of laundry. The substantial amount of water that it takes to produce a single piece of garment can deplete the water source for local communities, as well as take an exceeding amount of water from the ground. This can lead to very serious consequences for the communities that rely on the sources of water, as well as creating a threatening disturbance to the natural geology of where the location that the water is being pulled from. Many might think that since the ocean is such a large mass of water, microplastics have very little to no harm on either aquatic or human life. In truth, marine life ingests these microplastics, and the microplastics work their way up to the food chain, all the way up to humans. Research on microplastic ingestion by humans and the correlation of health risks has pointed to a higher amount of inflammation, as well as a lower sperm count. Much of the clothing that we see in stores or online is very cheap. Many of the name brand companies that we see today outsource their production to countries with very lax labor laws. According to Lindsay Reed, writer for the UAB Institute for Human Rights, prior to the 1960s, about 90% of clothes that were being bought in the US were also being produced here. Today, that has been reduced to only 3%. Employees that work in these factories overseas can face low wages, as well as reported verbal abuse and sexual discrimination. In 2013, a large textile factory in Bangladesh collapsed and killed nearly 1,000 people. The builder's owners illegally constructed the upper floors of the factory, and the day before the collapse, large cracks appeared and were deemed unsafe but workers were still ordered to work the following day. There have also been many other reports of unsafe working conditions in these textile factories. In a study done by Fair Wear Foundation, an interview of women working in various Vietnam factories found that nearly half suffered from harassment or violence in the previous year, which ranged from groping, slapping, threats of termination, and rape. Unfortunately, since much of the fashion consumption that the U.S. does is through outsourced labor, unethical business practices can lie below the lines. Since more and more people in the U.S. are being informed about fashion and its unethical labor, more and more companies trying to cover up the production with strategic marketing tactics. It can be hard for the consumer to make sustainably ethical decisions with very limited information about the product. Now that you understand the problem of fast fashions, unsustainable production, and unethical business practices, let's talk about a solution. Consumption of a product always starts with the need for it by the consumer. Taking steps to reduce your consumption of a clothing can vastly help. The easiest way to consume without the production of clothing is to buy secondhand. Many options for this exist, like shopping at a thrift store or even renting clothes that you might otherwise just be wearing for a specific occasion. Another small, impactful step that we can all do is to minimize the spread of microplastics in our ocean is to wash our clothes in cold water using a full load of laundry. On the macro scale, many brands are being pushed to be more sustainable. This means using production techniques that are more energy efficient. Various laws and plans are in place to drastically reduce the amount of carbon dioxide emitted. Obviously, it is essential for the consumer to be aware of what they're purchasing. Many brands nowadays use greenwashing tactics where they promote broad sustainability claims without any factual evidence. Doing personal research and knowing what you're buying is the best way to combat these tactics. I hope you all enjoyed listening to my speech and gained a new understanding of how the fashion industry can have very broad negative impacts.